during the 70s and the 80s, the old East Germany, basically were putting an awful lot of nasty steroids, testosterone into their young girls as a program really to win in sport. They totally dominated in the women's events, obviously, because what they could do was they could create a sort of a male puberty by giving these young girls these terrible drugs from about 11, with massive side effects. Many of them have been really poorly, some have even died. This was allowed to go on for a very long time. The girl that beat me was from East Germany. I've met her since, and she's got liver problems and kidney problems and fertility problems and all sorts of things. They had big court cases when the wall came down in '89. We were all very aware of it at the time.
You knew it was happening?
Oh, yes. I mean, because they would turn up, at a major competition. We'd never seen them before. They would look and sound like men. They had deep voices and, shadows on their chins, bless them, and bad skin and male physique. And they swam like males. They would do male equivalent times. Then they'd disappear again. And we'd see another one at the next major competition, and they would have hardly any success in the men's races and this massive success in the women's races. So at European level, they won 92% of the women's medals throughout that whole period of time and practically none in the men's. And the IOC went, well, they're not doing anything. You're going to go. And it was really, really frustrating. I mean, really frustrating. And I suppose that's why I speak out now. It's the biggest reason I speak out now, because I had friends that came fourth behind 3 East Germans, and their whole lives would have been different if they'd been Olympic champions.
You use that term really frustrating, but it's more than that, isn't it, Sharron? Surely, you've dedicated your life to this, your childhood, you every day, 8 hours a day, and all of a sudden somebody cheats.
Yeah.
It's more than frustrating, isn't it?
It's the injustice of it, I suppose. It was the injustice of it for all of us, because even at the time we knew that they weren't doing it kind of... I'm reluctant to say not knowing, because I think they must have known something was going on. Their bodies were changing, their voices were changing. They're going to ask questions. They're not stupid. However, there was very little they could do about it. So they weren't in a position where they could control it. Because what we showed, I did a documentary a few years ago, and we went to the Stasi files, and we could see that they were making about a 9% improvement. So you could take a very average swimmer, a female swimmer, if you make 9% improvement, you make them world record holders. So they had this total, they had an infinite number of young girls they could just move into the system, fill them full of these terrible drugs, and have them as world champions. So they didn't need to look after their best swimmers, because they had a train of just young girls, that they were removing from their families and putting them into training programs. So it was horrendous what was done. And there was always two victims. There was the victims that were cheated, like myself and my friends, and there were these young girls that were incredibly badly let down, by the IOC.
And why didn't the IOC get involved then? Why did they not? Because if it was as clear as day, and it really does sound like it, why did they not do something?
And they've still done nothing now.
Wow.
So we've had all the evidence, we've got all the paperwork. We had they had court cases where I think 25 million euros were given out in compensation. We've had, admissions of guilt. I've got admissions of guilt from the young woman that beat me on tape. The IOC will still do nothing. And I find it beggars belief when they're supposed to be promoting fair sport,
Sharron, talk to us about your friends, and obviously you don't have to go into personal details if you don't want to, but I think one of the things that often gets missed in this whole conversation is what sort of impact in a competitive environment where it's not a percentage thing. It's not like, well, this person got promoted unfairly and they get 3% more money and you don't. It's like you either won or you didn't. Yeah. And the gap between those two is, as you say, life-changing.
Yeah, it's absolutely. The commercial gap between being an Olympic champion and being fourth and no one ever remembering who you were is huge. It's absolutely huge. It's totally life-changing. And so it's that ability to have that opportunity, which I was not prepared to let happen all over again. The same end result in the fact that male puberty is enabling someone to have an advantage. One was artificial with the East German system, one is a natural process now. And I just thought, I can't let this happen again. I can't sit by and watch a whole another generation of young girls miss out. And it's worse, really, because in lots of ways with the transgender argument is you've got all of the pathways. You've got all of the masters events. You've got it across every sport, across every country. Whereas in my day, it was just at elite level, and it was just predominantly in, say, swimming, rowing, and track and field. It wasn't going to affect the British national championships or the American, European, college trials or any of those things. Whereas now it's affecting all young women across the whole world. They're not getting their opportunities to their success. And It might be an Olympic medal, which is huge, or it might just be the fact that you make it to the NC2As and you get to put this on your, on your CV for the rest of your life, which opens a door for you when you're going for a job application. They're losing those opportunities, and that's not fair.
And of course, in America, just to flesh that point out a little bit, because of the way the whole sporting and college system are linked, you could get to college that you might not be able to afford and get a really good education based on your athletic performance. And yet here you are competing with people who are male-bodied, to put it very diplomatically.
Which is the truth. The truth is that they are male-bodied, and that will never change. Their biological sex will always be male, no matter how much testosterone they reduce, no matter how much plastic surgery they might choose to have. And again, that doesn't happen in sport. They don't have plastic surgery. They don't have genitals removed, and in a lot of cases, they try to reduce testosterone for incredibly short periods of time. Like Leah Thomas, with the NC2As, Leah was asked to reduce her testosterone levels to 10 nanomoles of testosterone per litre. Well, that's 10 times what I have. And that was only for 1 year. I mean, so the difference is just ridiculous. That person goes from being 460th in America, not in the world. In the world, they would be not in the top 2,000. In America, 200 to being number one and beating 3 American silver medalists in the space of a year. So, I mean, a very mediocre male athlete becomes a very elite female athlete. And all those elite female athletes that spent 10 years of their life making huge sacrifices are just expected to step aside.
And Sharron, when was the first moment you thought, we've got a problem here?
It's been in the background for a while. Up until 2015, the IOC allowed males to identify females if they had got a certificate and had genital surgery. In 2015, it changed. And it's got progressively worse. I mean, to the point now where the IOC don't even suggest that anyone reduces testosterone. They just say you're not supposed to suggest that anyone that's biologically male has an advantage. Well, that is the most ludicrous thing to say, because we have men and women's races. So if there's no advantage, why are we having men and women's races? Why don't we just have 100 meters on the track? We know why, because we have 2 sexes. And so therefore, to offer opportunity across society, we have all these different types of categories. And that's not just male, female, that's age categories, that's para classifications, that's weight categories in boxing. It's all sorts of different categories to offer fair opportunity across society.